Hello there, and welcome to Lesson 3. Lesson 3 is on sacraments. In particular, it is on baptism, both infant and believers' baptism. This is part of the Christian Practices unit. This is Lesson 3, baptism or sacraments, and is part of the Christian Practices unit. Can I signpost you in the direction of Show My Homework, which is absolutely superb platform for having a document based upon this information. On that document, you will see that there are activities which I'd like you to do, please, and there are key terms to copy. I'd also like you to write your key notes in relation to the narrative that I'm about to deliver to you. Take a photo of your work, ping it off as an email to me, please. So, sacraments, what do we know? Well, essentially, the first sacrament is indeed baptism. We metaphorically speaking, we go through a door every time we go through a sacrament, of which there are 7. Baptism, as we have already said, is the first. Holy Communion, for many Catholics, would be a second. A third might be marriage. Some people might opt for marriage. Fourth is ordination. These are what we call vocational sacraments. They may appeal. We may feel a calling towards those particular sacraments or not. The last, I'm sure you can guess, are funerals. And there are many, such as confession, that are not, necessary that we need for our AQA exam. But to give you a flavour of the kind of sacraments, those are it. Excuse me. Every time we go through a sacrament, we get closer to God. We are on a journey getting closer to God. So each, therefore, are extremely special rituals which help to strengthen our relationship with God by making him part of our lives. They are important to the Christian community because they affirm very openly and very publicly that the individual in question wants to embark upon a spiritual journey to get closer to God. So that is the notion. That is what a sacrament is. Baptism is a really important sacrament. And infant baptism is something that obviously the individual doesn't choose. Rather, the parents do so on the baba's behalf. The baby will be given a baptism candle, quite typically, and this symbolises that they are receiving the light of Christ into their life. It is essentially a guide. So if, for example, you're in a very dark place, metaphorically, arguably by receiving that candle when you're a little baby, it does help you perhaps make the right decision. You are also given a godparent for the very same reason. This is not symbolic, but rather actually more practical. If you're ever in a difficult situation, you might go to that godparent and ask for advice. A baptism, is an infant baptism even, is done in a font and is done by Roman Catholics typically and the Church of England. A font is nothing more than perhaps a big old wine glass made of stone. They look quite similar if you could think of what a typical wine glass would look like. It is filled with holy water. This is just H2O, which has been blessed by a priest, and it is just poured gently, bucket, oh no, on the baby's head, and it will purify the baby. You can argue, but what's the baby done, man? Punching mummy in the tummy or whatever. No, obviously none of that. The baby carries with it the stain of original sin. Firstly, the stain of original sin comes from Adam and Eve eating the apple. We know that. We've done that. Secondly, it carries the sin of lust, in which there's the reason why the baby is there in the first place. Not only does it wipe away original sin, it is a sacrament that is instrumental in welcoming the baby into the Christian family. You could argue, however, that the family should not be making such a big decision on the baby's behalf, because that child may not want to embark upon a spiritual life, may not want to be Christian. And for that reason, some denominations, in other words, different Christian traditions, actually do not practice an infant baptism whatsoever. I've said it already, they practice a believer's baptism instead. Essentially, They choose, the individual chooses, they will deliver a testimony before they get into the baptismal pool, essentially outlining why they have chosen to get baptized as an adult. They are consciously aware of the decisions that they have made and are able to display that publicly to the laity, to the the people in front of them. They are led down into a pool, and then they are absolutely dunked in that pool, completely immersed under the water. This process is called total immersion. At that point, all sin, it dies. It dies in that baptismal pool. Typically, the pool is shaped as a coffin, because sin, not the individual, thankfully, the sin is dying and stays within the water where it diminishes. The individual is then brought back quickly, leave them under there, is quickly brought out of the water. And it's a big thing. It's a good thing. That individual has been born again. They are pure. They are free from sin. Now, which form of baptism do you prefer and why? Something to think about. Answer it. Which form is perhaps more significant? Which one appeals to you? There's a reason for that. Okay, guys, what I'd like you to do, of course, is on the sheet is could you please obviously write notes on the narrative I've given you, but also do the activities and copy the key terms. Good luck.